Stacey, hey, congratulations for Here Before.
Thank you. I'm really enjoying finally getting to share it.
It is a fascinating story in this case because it threw me off because I actually thought this was some kind of supernatural film, honestly.
I think that's okay. I don't think that's an invalid interpretation. Laura certainly doesn't, you know? So I think the film, it doesn't wrap up that neatly.
So, do you enjoy doing something like this where it's more of like it's actually like a mystery in its own case? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been drawn to, I guess, mashes of like hybrid genre. So I enjoy playing with elements and expectations, but I'm very much led by, I don't know, by the experiences that the film makes us have, or the spaces that it creates for us to sit in. I like making work that creates room to think. So even if it feels tense or at certain points, you know, the pace picks up or whatever, you know, I think always the thing that's important to me is, you know, that the film isn't telling us at all points that, you know, that we're leaning forward and we're, you know, engaging with the film.
Hybrid genre is a great description that this film actually fits into. So let's ask: what sparked you to write this story? Where the original idea came from?
The original idea probably has been with me for a very long time because I was a bit of a Megan, and I was really into, you know, the supernatural, reincarnation, and I was a bit precocious. So the sort of seed, this idea of a kid moving to a new neighborhood and saying something spooky, that had always been there. But it wasn't until I sat down and I allowed the screenplay to write itself. I didn't plan it out. It was very sort of instinctive. And thereafter it really became Laura's experience and Laura's world. So the idea probably started with Megan, but then passed the baton on, and it very much became Laura.
Tell us more about this. I don't want to say obsession, but your interest in reincarnation. You just believe in reincarnation, or do you just believe that there's a weird way how universes work?
I think the latter. I think you know, I am naturally curious and very open to the world, and I think as well culturally, my background, you know, the way, for example, the Irish wake the dead. You know, we have very different traditions, and they always say that the scrim between the living and the dead is much thinner. And I value those things. You know, I like living in a world where we don't have all the answers, or there isn't one interpretation of things. And I think sometimes those worlds can coexist, and that's a really beautiful and important thing. So yeah, I think that definitely informed my, you know, my approach to the film.
So how did you want to craft the characters in a film like this? Because this film, rather than focusing on you know, mystery or supernatural, it's actually focused on the characters themselves and trying to have us connect to them more emotionally.
Sorry, the question is,
how did you want to carefully craft these characters?
I see. I mean, I think the truth, I mean, sounds a bit pretentious, but I didn't want to craft them. I wanted them to lead me. I wanted to believe them. For me, these are people that I feel like I know. Certainly Laura was very much based on, I wanted to see the sort of women that I grew up around, and you don't often see on screen, or certainly not in these roles. So craft, I suppose, maybe is a word that I shy from in a funny way, because I wanted it to feel sublimated and intuitive and instinctive. And then when those characters when life is breathed into them by the performances, and you're gifted with such incredible performers as I feel like I was with this film, you know, then you're in a whole new world. And I think then when we were shooting as well, I was very open to what was brought on the day. And I think all of that helps to create, characters, but people, I would say, helps create people that we relate to, we believe, and we follow through the story.
So I guess the most important character that you had to cast was for Laura. Tell us about how Andrea was perfect fit for this. I've seen her previous works before, and she knows how to act in dramas. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, she's incredible. She's an incredible person and thinker and artist. And I also had followed her career. And quite early on, I thought of her in this role, but I didn't think I had a hope, of of casting Andrea Riseborough. But I wrote to her. She was happy to read the script. She responded to it very quickly, and things moved very quickly. And we just clicked and understood each other, I think. And that's very validating and very exciting. And she, as I said, she's just very instinctive, very fine. And what I loved was also that while we were shooting, she was always alive to choices. So things would change even in a minute way, but in a way that you could feel. And then when you're in the edit as well, you've just got this, these riches. And I think that's just an incredible skill.
As a director on a film like Here Before, and because Laura is such a complex and emotional character, how do you help Andrea to get into that character, or is it that she's so talented she could do it on her own?
I think it's it's a reciprocal thing. You're sort of not you're both literally and in a non-verbal way in conversation with each other. So there's the initial sort of like level of understanding from the page, from the script. And then there's conversations that you have that aren't literally about the character or the script, but just about how you are in the world, or how we talk about the things that come out, of the story. And then, she had her own process in terms of getting into Laura. She's from Newcastle originally, which is a northern part of England. And actually there's great resonance with the part of Northern Ireland, which is where the film is set and where I'm from. So there was a bit of a shorthand, I think, in terms of getting into that world, that landscape, and that family unit. And then I think once you're on set, again, that conversation never stops. So I feel like that was the process that we shared, and we were just very much aligned.
Now, pardon my Irish, but we're going to have to talk about the little girl herself, and I want to pronounce her name as Niamh. And
yeah.
I know, every time that name pops up, I keep, to us Americans, this is a rare name, but I keep on forgetting. In Ireland, this is a very common name.
It is true.
But tell us about the casting process on discovering her for a role like this.
So I was really excited about finding Megan. And so quite early on, I got onto that very early with a local casting agency called Carla Strong, who are based in Belfast. And they, we saw lots of kids. And I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew I would know it when I found it. And one of the glorious things about Niamh is it wasn't obvious straight away. She was very inexperienced. She didn't learn sides. So we just started chatting and playing games and improvising a bit. And that's when you see this side to her that's just like so alert and so alive and such a sort of old soul and so mischievous in one so young. It was just irresistible. And she brought that to the shoot. She just, you can't take your eyes off her. And she's a mischief. We loved working with her. And she and Andrea got on like a house on fire. So did Lewis, who played Tig. It was quite a small cast, so that bonding happened pretty quickly. But yeah, she's just a find and a natural, and that's, as a director, that's just so incredibly exciting to work with.
I mean, and the saying in Hollywood is never to work with children and animals, and to how did you want to direct a young child like this with no experience, which is quite the opposite to Andrea?
Yes, yeah. Enthusiasm and respect and a sense of playfulness. With Niamh, as I say, she didn't really learn sides, so we would just run through the beats, while we were setting up the shot, and then we would play with it, and we would do a few takes like that, and then I would say, like, let it breathe, which is, to let both Andrea and Niamh or whoever was in the scene just loosen up a bit, and not go completely off book, but just like see what happened. So there's quite a lot of that material is actually in the film. There's a scene in the car with them all that was completely improvised, and it just came out of the fact that the conditions were right and they were very alive to that. And Andrea too. Not every actor likes to work that way, but again, she was a real pro and really rolled with it, and what we got was really beautiful.
Now, this is your feature film directorial debut. How was that overall experience for you? Would you want to stay in the feature films department yourself?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's it now. I've got the bug. Like, it was such a sort of baptism of fire. It happened so quickly, and I know that's very unusual. It was pretty whiplash, and I just had to go with it, and I loved it. I loved every moment of it. I found, to my surprise, that I thrived under that pressure. That there's a real collegiate camaraderie thing that happens when you're in a shoot together. And it's, I think there's no going back now for me. That's it. I'm just going to annoy people until they let me make more films. But there is a real validation as well to the feeling that, like you said, I have a vision, I know what I want to see, I know what I want to make, and then to come out the other end and say, yes, I did that, there it is. Sometimes there's a huge mistake around this industry and directors, and I think actually demystifying some of that is quite useful.
Absolutely. And one more thing, Stacey, before I let you go, I think you mentioned that you are from Northern Ireland, and this film is also, the production was also Northern Ireland. Tell us about why Northern Ireland is a perfect setting for, to tell these type of stories, because how you captured it looks absolutely beautiful. Like, it almost makes me wanting to move there if it wasn't for the supernatural ideas in the back of my head.
I think there are a number of levels on which I celebrate Northern Irishness. It, for a long time, wasn't represented on screen unless it was to do with the Troubles, and I grew up at the end of the Troubles, and I'm very invested in the beauty of the culture and the landscape that we really rarely get to celebrate. And, Irishness in general is, I feel, still quite a sort of poetic, we're steeped in literature. The co-location of art and politics and everyday life feels very entwined in a way that it isn't everywhere. And so I think that I was always very invested in the visual poetry of the film, and I knew that was accessible in the landscape, and it was something that I was just so thrilled to share with an audience, and I feel very proud of. And then there is a sort of residue of the Troubles, in the sense that I grew up around a lot of women who, in the face of great trauma and grief, were incredibly strong. And you don't see that representation as often as I think it reflects real life. So there is a sort of quiet cultural specificity to some of the more nuanced elements of those family dynamics, of the socioeconomic difference between the two families, stuff that's sort of layered in. And I think that often an audience will receive, even if they don't know Northern Irish culture and society that well. But I think all of that goes towards creating a world and a story and people in that story that we believe in, that feel fully formed and complex.
Well said, Stacey. Well, hey, it's a pleasure speaking to you about Here Before. And you know what? I can't wait to see you get back on that director's chair for another feature film, and hopefully I get to talk to you again.
Thank you. Me too. Lovely chatting to you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much.